Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Thursday, August the 14th. We're almost halfway through August. So, wow, where has the month of August gone? I guess we've been busy following the news, haven't we? It's been it's really been that way for much of the year, hasn't it? It seems like there's always something going on, and there's something big that's going to happen Friday, of course, when President Putin and President Trump get together in Alaska. That's going to take up a lot of keep the newsroom very busy, as they like to say. Well, before we get to our topics today, just a couple of quick things that I saw on the news. First of all, they took a poll in California. You know, Governor Newsom of California has been threatening to basically do the gerrymandering card and gerrymander a bunch of districts in California to counter what we've done here in Texas, or we'll be doing here in Texas probably next week when everybody's back in town. But he ran into a little bit of a problem. They took a poll, and most people in California do not want this to happen. They want to keep the commission on. They don't want politicians drawing up their districts. So I'm not sure he's going to be able to do it. Now, he may go around, he may just do it anyway and hope that the public supports it, which they may support it. But this is not going to be as quick in California as it was in Texas, as I explained yesterday or the day before. In Texas, it was simply a question of the governor calling a session and putting this topic on the agenda. It was simple as that. He calls a session and he puts this topic on the agenda. California, it's a little bit more complicated than that. A little bit more complicated than that. And whether he can actually do it before 26, I've got my doubts. They're going to probably try. But I was listening to some experts of of California voting laws, and they didn't think this was going to be that easy. I don't mean the outcome. I mean, the outcome could very well be easy, meaning they'll take away some Republicans' districts. That they could probably do. But I'm saying the process is a little bit more complicated than Texas, and they may not be able to do it before 26, which then, of course, defeats the whole purpose of the whole thing. I mean, the whole thing is to change the map before 26, and they may not be able to do it before that. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. We'll try to do a video next week or the week after talking about some of these rules in California, because it's a little bit more complicated, I think, than it is here in Texas. I mean, it is more complicated, I'll say that, than it is here in Texas. All you had to do in Texas was simply the governor calls the session and he puts it on the agenda. It's as simple as that. Here, it's not that simple in the Golden State, to say the least. The other issue, and I'm not sure when we're going to see this, but it's out there, is the whole issue of same-sex marriage and the Supreme Court. You may remember that in 2015, in June of 2015, the Supreme Court 5-4 decided in favor of what came to be known as the gay marriage ruling. I don't remember the name of the ruling, but anyway, it became that, and it basically, made same-sex marriage or gay marriage, whatever they want to call it, the law of the land. And states like Texas that had restrictions on marriage. We had one here in Texas that basically said marriage was between a man and a woman. That was in our Constitution. That, was pretty much out of the way because of that Supreme Court opinion. Now they're talking about going back to the Supreme Court and reversing that opinion or overturning the opinion and sending the issue back to the states, which, by the way, that's what I support. Okay, I don't really care about gay marriage as an issue. If you want to marry somebody of the same sex, I don't care on a personal level. But I'm talking about the constitutionality of it. I don't think it should have been done by the Supreme Court. It's just like the abortion opinion. This should be up to the states and let every state figure this out. And my guess is that if they overturn this decision, what will happen very quickly is that you'll have a bunch of states, even before the opinion, if they sense that the opinion is coming, what you'll have is a bunch of states simply saying, okay, we're going to have this, we're going to make marriage between two people of the same sex legal. And in a sense, they're going to even do it before they believe the Supreme Court opinion is issued, which I guess could be next year or 27. I'm not real clear, but I support the idea that marriage is a state issue. That's where it should be decided. We decided in Texas, they can decide it in California, New York, whatever. It is a state issue. It is not a national, it is not something that should be done by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court should have never written this opinion back in 2015. They should have sent it back to the states and say, hey, you guys figure this out. This is not for us. But they did it. They did it. It was Justice Kennedy who I think wrote the majority opinion, 5-4, very controversial opinion to say the least. But now, with a more conservative, not necessarily conservative, but a more states' rights oriented Supreme Court, maybe this can go back to the states. That's what should happen, in my opinion. It should go back to the states and let the states worry about it. I think most of the states will pass some kind of a gay marriage law, and everything will be fine. Everything will be fine, just like it's been with abortion. The abortion topic has pretty much gone off the front page because every state is deciding this, and that's the way it should be. I have a post over at the American Thinker today talking about Beto O'Rourke. The Democrats, and they're coming back. I'm pretty sure they're coming back. Everything I hear is that they're coming back to the legislature, to the next session that the governor is going to call next week. But Beto O'Rourke has sort of become the unofficial face of these Democrats who decided to pack up and go somewhere else to prevent the vote on the maps. And I think the Democrats made a huge mistake in letting Beto become the face of this movement, simply because Beto was more interested in Beto than in the Democrats. Beto is a man who really wants attention. He really wants attention. And if you've watched him here the last few days with some of the things that he's saying, some of the profanity that he's using, I mean, the message is, hey, the hell with the rules, we're going to do whatever it takes to get power back. Well, is that what the Democrats really believe? I don't think so. I think most Democrats are probably watching that and wondering, what the heck has this guy come from? But anyway, so I think it was a mistake for Beto to become the face of this movement or of this group, even though he's not even a legislator. He's a private citizen, but he became the head of this group. So anyway, he put out all these statements and made a bunch of statements about how, it doesn't matter what the rules are. And I think that was a huge mistake for the Democrats, because Beto O'Rourke really doesn't have a future in Texas politics anymore. He had his chance. His best chance was 2018, when he actually, in all fairness, came within 3 points of beating Senator Cruz. That was an excellent campaign that he ran. It was a perfect year for him to run the campaign, by the way. He had everything going for him. It was Trump's first congressional year or election. He had money coming out of, he had more money in that campaign than he knew what to do with. And they had people all over the state signing up voters and in all the colleges. Let's face it, he ran a very good campaign. They certainly had a lot of money to run it, but he came 3 points short, I think, of winning. Then he made a big mistake in running for president. Big mistake. He wasn't ready for that, and neither was the party, really. And then, of course, running for governor in 22, that wasn't really his thing either. And he lost by 10 points when he ran for governor in 22 against Governor Abbott. But now he wants to become, whatever of the whatever he wants, whatever name you want to give him. He wants to become the face of the Democrat Party here, or at least this group that was running away. And I think he's not really helping them by doing that. And I think most Democrats ought to detach themselves from Beto and say, hey, Beto, you're on your own. We've got our own problems to worry about. So check out my post over at the American Thinker today. It's called Beto is a Four-Letter Word. A little bit of a reference there to that famous song by Bob Dylan, Love is a Four-Letter Word, if some of you remember that, although Dylan never recorded that song. That's the crazy thing about it. It was Joan Baez who actually recorded that, the best version of that song. There may have been others recorded, but Joan Baez was the one who recorded the very best version. I have a post coming out tomorrow talking about how Trump is winning this DC crime issue. And he's winning it because the Democrats, again, they don't have any common sense. And in this post that I have tomorrow, I write about the editorial today in the Dallas Morning News, which is a really good editorial if you can catch it. It's really good. And basically what they're saying is that, you can be, let's say, you can be concerned about the president putting troops on the ground in a city and all of that. There are, legitimate concerns about that. Although in this case, not as much, because Washington, D.C. is a federal city and he's got a lot more powers than he would, let's say, somewhere else. So you can be concerned about that. And that's a legitimate, serious concern. But the crime issue is there. It's real, as the Dallas Morning News wrote in their editorial today. The crime issue is real, and they cited some statistics comparing, Washington, D.C. with other cities, and the fact is that they have a crime problem. And the people who live there know that they have a crime problem, which is why I think for the most part they support this, because they know what it's like to walk the streets there. And I've heard more and more Democrats on TV say, no, there is a crime problem here. I see it. I live through it. And so this is a real winner, I think, for President Trump, and a real loser for the Democrats. What they should have done, honestly, is to say, you know what, President Trump, you're right. You're right. There is a crime problem, and we appreciate the fact that you see it, and we want to work with you to fix it. That's what they should have done, not just in New York and Baltimore and other cities as well, where the problem may be just as bad, if not worse. I mean, Baltimore is horrible, the situation there. But anyway, they decided to fight him, and Trump is winning because, people understand that there's crime. They understand it. They feel it. They go to work. They walk the streets. They know what you're talking about. So Trump is winning the DC crime issue. He's winning that big time. And the Democrats made a big mistake in opposing it rather than joining hands with Trump and saying, hey, let's work on this. The country it'd be better for the country to have cities that are more clean and more safe. It'd be good for the country to have that. Good for everybody, not just Trump, but good for everybody. Well, let me leave you today with a happy birthday message. Happy number 80 to Steve Martin. Now, if you're my generation, you remember him many years ago with some hilarious movies that he made. Remember that one called The Jerk? And then, of course, The Wild and Crazy Guy on Saturday Night Live, and King Tut. Remember that song that he had back in the late 70s? And, of course, the Czechoslovakian Brothers, with Dan Aykroyd. I mean, those were great things that he did. And I think he did other things, too, in the 1980s. But nevertheless, Steve Martin, one of my very favorite people in the world, who was actually born in Waco, Texas. I didn't even know that until I read his biography. Born in Waco, Texas, Steve Martin. Who knew that Waco, Texas would produce a comedian like Steve Martin? But he was a very funny man, the Wild and Crazy Guy. One of my favorites. And that little video that he made about King Tut, that's one of the best videos ever made. King Tut. What a great performance. Happy number 80 to Steve Martin. Wonderful day, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, and we'll talk later. Bye-bye, everybody.